Hey guys, my name is Kev and thank you for checking out the channel. Today we're going to be talking about emulation on one of my favorite consoles of all time, the PlayStation 1. And we're going to be emulating it with DuckStation. So let's get started. The first thing you're going to want to do is go to duckstation.org. We're going to be emulating on PC. You can also use this emulator on Android. There are other PlayStation 1 emulators, but in my opinion, this one's the best. So go ahead and go over to GitHub. And then we're going to scroll down a little ways into the page until we get down to download and running. And you're going to go ahead and click on this link right here. It says alternatively download the direct download link. That's going to keep you from having to go through all the releases. This just give you a direct download. So after we do the direct download, we will go ahead and then go into our downloads. Go and pull up my downloads page here. And I already extracted this guy. Now, when we get to the extraction, there's a couple of things you're going to primarily need, and I'm going to walk you guys through the setup of this guy. Even though DuckStation's already set up on my machine, I can still walk you through how to set it up. It does set up a lot like a standard emulator, with one exception, and this is kind of a thing with all of the PlayStation emulators. You need the operating system. You need the BIOS. Now, if you have a PlayStation 1, you can dump it from the PlayStation 1, and there's a bunch of guides online on how to do that. You can make sure you if you want the PAL region or the NTSC version. Biggest difference that I see from them is that the PAL versions are locked to 50 hertz, which means you can only play your games if you play in the traditional sense at 50 frames per second, as opposed to the NTSC that went up to 60 hertz because TVs in the rest of the world were 60 hertz, versus in the power region they were only 50. So they worked a little differently. That's the only difference I really know between the two. There might be more that I'm not familiar with, and that's fine. Um, but for the sake of this emulator, I would recommend getting the NTSC BIOS. Like I said, they're on Google. You can find them if you don't have a original PlayStation or if you stay in the power region. Once you have that, come back to your folder here. You're going to see these are all your installation files you have here. Now, I've already downloaded and installed it, so I'm just going to click on the DuckStation release, and it's already scanned my games because, again, I already have it installed. If you don't have it installed, it's going to ask you to set up your BIOS. Now, to set up your BIOS, what you're also going to need to do, if we go into settings, that's the first thing you're going to want to do is go into settings, go to BIOS, and DuckStation is going to search for a BIOS. So you want to give it a directory. So what I did, I just went into my documents folder. That's where I keep all my emulators, DuckStation, and then I have a separate folder for the BIOS, and I dropped the BIOS into that folder. If I go to my documents here, I go to DuckStation, you will see I also have a BIOS folder. Oh, that's the wrong folder. Give me a second. DuckStation, BIOS, and then this is my BIOS file right here that I have there. So you have that there. Otherwise, none of this will work. And you can either direct it there or you can let it auto scan. Once you do that, the next thing you want to do, we can go into general settings. These are just kind of general stuff that you're going to want to set up on the DuckStation emulator. Console settings, you can select your region or you can auto detect. I like to leave mine in US and Canada, though you did see that I had it auto detect. It'll do that too. Whatever. Emulation mode, I like to use the recompiler the fastest. That's kind of where it defaulted at. I leave it there. CD-ROM emulation, I didn't touch any of these. Leave them default. Emulation settings, I set emulation speed to 100%, 60 FPS like you get in the NTSC regions, or 50 in the PAL. Now you can go higher than that. Games back then sometimes can get a little wonky, so I just lock everything to 60. You can fast forward and turbo in this guy if you want to, and you can give yourself a limit or go unlimited. I don't even use this feature, so I don't particularly care. I don't touch it, I just left it alone. Your game list settings, this is where you tell the emulator where your games are. You can click the little plus button and then you will navigate to your games folder. So like I go to D, game ROMs, I list each of mine by the console. So I go PlayStation and select folder. And then it'll show up here, and then you can just allow it to scan for new games, or you can scan for all the games in the folder. Once it does that, your games will appear on the list in back here. Your hotkey selections are just different hotkeys that you can use for different options in the emulator. They're all configurable, so use that as you will. You can set that up to be whatever you want. You can also set up your system, your graphics, all of these guys to different hotkeys, volume, save states, all that stuff. So it's a good idea to get in there, play with it, and decide what you want and how you want it set up. Controller settings. Just like every other emulator that we played with on the channel, you're just going to go in there. You're going to turn on your controller. Controller type, I told it to be the DualShock analog. That works. It'll detect your Xbox controller, so that's good too. And then you'll just click on the button you want it to be. It'll give you a few seconds. So for example, I just pressed up on my controller and it gave me up. Now let me double check to make sure. Oh, I want that on my on my analog stick. So I did that there, and you should be able to do your axis you should be able to do your D-pad too. Use analog sticks for D-pads and digital modes too, so you can do that as well. I just set it all up for my analog sticks. I don't even bother with the D-pads unless I absolutely have to in a specific game. And a lot of the time in a lot of the PlayStation games, because they were still figuring out analog sticks, you can use either or. Not a big deal. Memory card settings, you can do separate cards per game title. You can share the same one for all games. It doesn't matter. I tend to do it just part of the game. And then you just select a path for your memory card. I just throw it in my documents, duck station, and then just let it go to the default station. And you can, or the default folder. Do that for all these guys. Display settings. You go under here, you're going to select your renderer. I highly recommend Vulkan. Vulkan is, if you can get Vulkan in most of your emulators, I usually recommend Vulkan. That is just a better renderer these days for emulators, unless it's an emulator that's not being really supported anymore. Then you might want to go with OpenGL, but for the most part, use Vulkan. Adapter, that's going to be your graphics card. I have an RTX 2080 Ti. Your full screen mode, I use borderless full screen. You can go into regular full screen if you want to. You can change that guy up later. And then I turn on VSync. I only turn on VSync for these old games because they otherwise will screen tear a lot. This guy doesn't support G-Sync, so I turn VSync on to keep the tearing at a minimum. Threaded presentation, I leave that alone. Sync to host refresh rate, leave it alone. Aspect ratio, I like to use the game native, but you can change it. You can match it to the window 4:3, which is the game's native resolution most of the time. You can go 16:9, 19:9, 20:9, whatever you really want to. I just prefer to play these games in their native resolution because that way they look kind of weird when you stretch them out to 16:9, in my opinion. You can also, if you want to, you can have borders, and that's where you can get the nice cool border pictures by doing like only an overscan. You could do that there, and then I disable downsampling. You can turn it on if you want to. I see no reason to do it. Integer upscaling, I go ahead and turn that on. Internal resolution screenshots. I tend to use my GeForce Experience for screenshots, so I don't even bother with that. And then you can turn on the game's OSD, so you can show OSD messages like your game saves, frame rate, display frame rate, emulation speed, resolution. You can controller input. You can put all that there in the OSD if you want to. Enhancement settings, internal resolution for scale. I tend to bump it up for 4K. Texture filtering, XBR. That was kind of the default. If I remember, I leave that there. There is a widescreen hack if you want to use it. Again, I tend to play games in their native resolution. So if it's native 16:9, I'll use it. If not, I'll leave it alone. Post-process settings, I don't even mess with these really. You can, if you want to, you can add post-processing and do all kinds of different filters on there. I leave it alone, personally. Audio settings, this is just the audio engine that you want to use. Cubed has worked great for me, so I leave it alone. Sync to output, resampling, and then you can get your audio volume. You can set up for retro achievements if you want to. Just log in and then set up your account on retroachievements.com, and that'll get you some of the achievements for PlayStation games. I just haven't set it up, honestly, but you can. It's an option. And then your advanced settings, I don't touch those guys. I just leave them alone. So once you have all that set up, you have your controller set up, it's time to play. You have your games set up, it's time to play some games. So I have my controller going, and let's turn on WWF Attitude. This was one of my favorite games as a teenager in high school. So I'll tell you now, the game doesn't hold up the way it did, and I wish it still did. I don't remember these controls. They were trying to make a more complex wrestling game, and I don't think I think they accomplished that, but I don't think it held up because it was so complex. So I'll pick Triple H, and I'm gonna go. I want to go up against a scrub. Um, Grandmaster Sexay, that'll be fine. And because I haven't played this game much in years, we're just gonna start the game, and you'll see it plays really well. It plays flawlessly. We'll turn on our frame rate graph. We'll let it load. And what's cool about this, you even got the opening entry music, which we're not going to play here because WWE, they come after everybody. So we're not going to do that. We're not going to play a little bit. But you see, they did the Are You Ready? I'm just skipping past it because of WWE. And then, there you go. One of my favorite games from back in the day. WWE Attitude. And I'm looking at it now. This is probably one of those games that actually you might want to play with the analog stick. Or with the D-pad. But it's not activated, so I didn't do that. So, anyway. We'll jump out of that one. We're going to try one other game just so you guys can see, just how these games run. Let's do the Siphon Filter. Siphon Filter was another game that I loved. Ooh. That classic PlayStation logo. Alright, guys, and here it is. Siphon Filter. This was one of my absolute favorite games in my teenage years, though I don't remember how to play it. I'll be perfectly honest there.
The operation.
I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to sit in cutscenes.
I've got an ID match for both.
Check.
It's basic. It was back when they used to do they used to do stealth games. Like, and I don't mean like stealth games like, oh yeah, we've Assassin's Creed. Like, no, the whole idea of games like this or like old school Metal Gear. They were really just like games that you kind of snuck around in and you did stealth missions. And now most of the time, those stealth aspects of stealth in games, they're most of your standard AAA games. Like, everything is kind of just converged into one thing now. For better or for worse. One thing that's throwing me off right now especially is you don't really have to ADS in this game. Like, you can ADS. It's actually really difficult to do so. Instead, you just hold one button and you aim and shoot, and you're actually firing with your square button. That's really, really weird. But the game runs great. It looks basically how I remember it. It plays awkward on analog sticks. This is probably another one that you should play on the D-pad. And because I say too, this is the first generation of 3D. So it wasn't uncommon to have games that had awkward 3D controls. Like, it wasn't uncommon at all. I don't know how to switch guns. There we go. Assault rifle did the trick. Get rocked, baby. There's a communications array. So I'm supposed to call somebody with this. If I can move straight. Like, these are 3D games.
I've taken out Kravitz and destroyed the comm equipment, but I don't see their uplink dish.
I'll trace it.
It would probably help if I be quiet. You know, I might have actually seen that stuff. But, well, either way, it's still fun. And that's what I miss about a lot of games now. Like, they're just... We had similar games back in the day. They just didn't look good, and I felt like the games back then were just designed better. Okay, I have to... I'm assuming I still have to go over there and get them. Well, he's gone. Let's see, how do I get over there? Do I just have to shoot the boxes? Well, that doesn't make sense. I'm just wasting ammo. I probably can't. I know I'm probably supposed to be over there too. That's the worst part. I'm just not sure how to get there. Yeah, because there's definitely nothing over here unless I can climb this pipe, which I don't think I can. And before I make too much of a fool of myself, because I'm not sure where I'm going, I'm going to go ahead and call it a wrap there. Let me know what you guys think about DuckStation. Like I said, it's from one of my favorite consoles as a kid. I have so many great memories of the PlayStation 1. And while I haven't played a lot of these games since like 15, 20 years, they just bring back, you know, the happy thoughts in my head. So I want to share that with you guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Of course, if you're new to my channel, I'd love to have you subscribe. I'll talk to you guys next time, and thanks for watching.